Hi, everyone. Welcome to the October Honua Scholars Dialogue session. My name is Karina. I'm the Honua Scholars Dialogue session director, and usually I just facilitate these meetings, but today I'll actually be giving this presentation about grad school. What makes me qualified to talk about grad school is that I'm currently a grad student in a PhD program at UC Berkeley, but my lab is at UCSF. It's just like a joint program, so I think I know grad school pretty well by now. So yeah, let's just get started. So, what is graduate school? Basically, it's just more school. It's an advanced academic or professional study that usually follows your bachelor degree that you get in your undergrad. It can be either a master's degree, which is 1 to 3 years long, or a doctorate degree, which is usually takes 4 to 6 years. And here on the side, on the right, I just have this little diagram showing all the types of master's degrees that are out there. So it could be like MBA, Masters of Arts, Masters of Science, and then the doctor's degree, which you may have heard of like PhDs, JD, and MDs. During grad school, you take very rigorous specialized courses that are way harder than undergrad. And it can usually include a research component that is done in the lab. It can be done on the computer or out there in the field. So before you consider grad school, you should ask why you should go to grad school. And grad school can give you opportunities for advancing to certain careers. As some careers require advanced degrees. It's also a really great way to network and specialize in a certain field if you have a particular interest. Also, a grad school is great for someone who is just interested in contributing to general knowledge. So, if you're considering grad school, I would recommend looking at this diagram and maybe asking yourself questions like, does the career you want require grad school, graduate degree? Are you motivated to go to grad school? Can you afford it? That's sometimes part of the equation. And then have you done enough research to apply? And so there are a lot of careers made possible by graduate degrees. Some common ones are university professors, scientists, people who work in computer science, public health, etc. Grad school can also give you opportunities to travel. Oftentimes, you have to collaborate with people who are located in different places. You can attend conferences that allow you to learn more about research being done in your field and also for field work in different environments. So, what do I do in grad school? Well, I mostly do research, and as a part of that, of course, is data analysis. I do a lot of presentations, like lab meetings, to my department and also conferences. During grad school, I took classes, and then a lot of those classes are just seminars where you like listen to other people present their work and talk about like papers. In grad school, you're also usually teach um, like undergrads, and then there's also a lot of writing involved, like writing proposals, your thesis, and also when you apply to fellowships. So now I'm going to go over how you prepare to go to grad school. So, as I kind of talked about earlier, you should ask yourself a few questions before you apply. For example, is a graduate degree necessary for entry into your chosen field? So, you want to really consider like careers that would be in that field before you go to grad school. You want to think about how a graduate degree would allow you to get promotions or raises in your chosen field. Um, because sometimes if you just have maybe an undergrad degree, you can only advance so far within a certain company and go to a certain position. So if there's another position that you want that requires a graduate degree, it's you would highly consider going to grad school. Sometimes people who already are out there in the workforce want to make a career change, and a graduate degree could help them do that. And also, most importantly, you want to ask yourself, is this graduate degree in a subject I am passionate about? Because sometimes grad degrees take a long time to accomplish, and you really want to enjoy what you're studying. And so before grad school, you want to gain prior research experience, either in industry or academia. Personally, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, um, most people think that getting prior research experience in academia is more favorable if you're going into something like a PhD. They just seem to like when the applicants have more experience working at a university lab versus like a company. So, but overall, either place is good if you have prior research experience in either place. Though it's not really always required, it really depends on the program you're applying to. Though if you're applying to like a biology PhD program, it's kind of like the main part of your application is your research experience, and that's what really strengthens your application. Um, so yeah, depending on the program you're applying for, different amounts of prior work is recommended. You usually want around 2 summers of full-time research experience. I would recommend more. So if you go to a university where you can do research during the school year, that would really help your application, and just making you a better more knowledgeable about your what you're studying. You also want to get letters of recommendation from your mentor, which I'll talk a bit about more later and how to do that. It's also okay to take time off or take time to work between undergrad and grad school if you didn't have that time during undergrad to really um, get that experience. And so sometimes even this people or programmers like when you have like full-time work experience between undergrad and grad school. If you need to, I would recommend seeking opportunities outside of your undergrad institution if you attend a school that doesn't have those opportunities in your field of interest. So this is something that I actually did because I went to a very small liberal arts college and I wanted to do research that was more focused on like medicine and disease instead of like bugs and plants. So I actually went to a bigger neighboring university to get my research experience, and that actually really helped me get into the program because the lab I was in was the PI was a very big name, so worked out. Um, but I would recommend summer internships, even if you have like if you go to a university just to like university that has like your field of interest available to you just to like gain more experience in other places and then also like RUs and other types of ex jobs can help you gain valuable experience in your field. And also, besides this, there's also the chance to do a post-baccalaureate program to strengthen your application. I know people who have done this, like at the NIH, and this really helps them since they didn't really do that much research in undergrad. And then right after they did the post-bac program, they got into grad school immediately. So it's very helpful, and some even pay stipends that could even be better than a grad school stipend. Um, and so also before you're applying, you want to network a lot. I would talk to admissions offices and also the specific department of the school that you are applying to. I would ask them just any questions you have, that they don't even have to only be academic. It can be about like life and being a student there. Um, I would also recommend talking to specific faculty who you might want as a mentor or like PI. Um, Reaching out lets them know that somebody might be interested in working with them and that person really likes you really like their research. They might have a position for you, so this could help when you want to get into the program. It's just important to know if they even have space for you there. Remember that this is kind of like an informal interview, so you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And so you have to kind of be careful with this because you need to be prepared and be aware that also they could be on the admissions committee. This actually happened to me. Um, so you want to make a really good impression on them because their your application might come across their table, and you want to make sure that they remember you in a good way so that they can put in a good word. And also, you might want to talk to the faculty at your current institution to see if they have any connections or friends that are in the programs you are applying to. That way, you can know if they're looking for students in that program again. And then lastly, um, I didn't do this as much, but I would consider talking to current students in the programs you are interested in. Um, this is more important maybe after you get in, but it can kind of help before. They can tell you who is hiring, if their lab is really hiring, and if they think they have space. And they can also tell you the truth about what the environment is really like at that school or that program. And one really important component of your application are letters of recommendation. This is a reference written by a faculty member who has strongly been involved in your undergraduate education or your research experience. And when you're considering your writer, you really want to choose those people carefully because they can make or break your application. Of course, you don't want to choose someone who doesn't like you, but um, that you don't really know what they will write, of course, so you have to be really careful. You want to try and get a senior faculty member in your chosen field to write, so hopefully that is your mentor or someone you did research with. And if they're asking you what they should write about you, you might want to tell them specific qualities about yourself that you want them to emphasize, and that can only benefit your application. Um, when you're requesting a letter, I would make all requests up to 2 months in advance, um, just to give them enough time to write. And also during, after they say yes, you still want to follow up with reminders to make sure they submit on time, even up to like the day if they haven't submit yet. And when after they agree to write, you would probably want to send them a copy of your statement of purpose so they get to really know how passionate about you are about pursuing this degree and what you're thinking. So maybe it will help to motivate them to write an even better letter. You also want to provide them with your CV or resume so that they know all your experiences. And then, of course, you want to give them a list of all the schools you're applying to, when the letter is due, and how to submit it. For a lot of schools, I think you would like put in their email on your application portal, and then it will send them a like link to submit. So you can't really send them the link directly yourself all at once. So I would just like request if you're doing multiple schools, just do it all within like the same 10 minutes so that it doesn't get lost in their inbox. And then transcripts, you would submit these as well. If you didn't know, they're official records of your classes, your grades, and your GPA. So they use this to kind of know how rigorous your classes are, what kind of classes you took, and how well you did. Um, this, I guess, one of the most important parts of your transcript is your GPA. It only really needs to be so high, like a 4.0 can definitely help your application, but it doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be accepted. I did not have a 4.0 and I'm still got in somehow. Um, but a lower GPA combined with a lot of research experience or one really good research experience could make you a really competitive applicant. Um, as admissions committees, they consider a lot of pieces of your application. They consider also like the rigor of your school and also the classes that you took. And of course, you just want to do a lot of research on your programs. On your program website, then they might list like the average GPA of your applicants or like the lowest GPA that you can have for them to consider you. So that information is usually out there. And I don't know too much about this, but some programs require you to take a test or submit test scores to get in. So for like master's and PhD, sometimes it's the GRE. Uh, for medical school, it's the MCAT. For law school, LSAT. And then for like an MBA, I think it's GMAT. So when you're applying, you want to know um, what standardized tests are necessary and when they give those tests. So, for example, I guess I didn't take this, but the GRE subject tests are only given twice a year. And on your program website, you might see like the average test score. So that might be helpful for you to consider when you're studying and taking the test. I guess you don't need a perfect score to get into a program. As I said, some schools testing is optional. I would take if you're applying to a school like that, I would consider taking the GRE if it could strengthen your application. Like for me, for example, I'm not super great with standardized testing, and my all my schools were optional, so I chose not to take the GRE. Um, and then for those programs that do consider them, I would work on getting above a certain score so that your application gets seen. Though like a high test score, like a high GPA, doesn't mean that you're going to be accepted automatically, because there's so many other things that are more important than this, like your research experience. And then I guess you can take tests in the spring or summer so that you know your result before you're choosing your programs to apply for. And I guess also another thing to consider is the fellowships and scholarships and other funding sources that might take those scores. So if you're applying to those, you might need to get your test score in time for the application deadline. And then now we're at applying to graduate school. So I would say August to November is like your pre-application season. So this is when you're getting ready to submit your application. During this time, you would write your personal slash research statement. Sometimes these are two separate things. Sometimes they're just one big statement. It really depends on the program that you're applying to. In these statements, you would write about your research interests, your experiences, and why you really want to attend grad school. I would look at examples of other personal statements from students who have applied and gotten in. If you know any grad students that are in the program, then I would ask them if they would be willing to share and applicate their statement, which I'm always open to doing that. I would send drafts to current grad students and your mentor and ask them for feedback. This is probably one of the most time-consuming parts. Um, and stressful parts of your application is writing this statement and getting a lot of drafts out and then improving your statement. And then at the same time, you would have asked for letters of recommendation, choosing people that know you well personally and academically. You would provide them with your personal statement, even if you're not done yet, and that's totally fine. If you know you're going to be taking time off between undergrad and grad school, I would ask them to write a letter to keep on file for future use so that they might not remember you that far ahead. So if they have that letter already and can just submit it, that would be super easy for them. If you are joining any sort of like research group or lab, I would do a lot of research on potential advisors or like PIs. I would read the papers that they published, and look at their like lab website. And this all this information would be super useful for your research statement so that you can show that you're really interested in the program and the people that are a part of that program. And of course, take the GRE if you are applying to master's or PhD program or any other test. But that timeline could be a little bit different, not necessarily August to November. And also, kind of going off what was said earlier, I would contact and meet with those potential mentors. This was also very time consuming. I did this. At first, it might seem like you're having a super casual conversation with them, but in their mind, they might be treating it like an informal interview. And so you have to really be prepared to talk about your research and any complex parts about it, because they might really actually start asking you about like your experiments and things. So you really want to know what you're doing. This is also really helpful for you as well. It's not just like them trying to get a feel for you, it's also you trying to get to know them, and see if they would maybe be a good fit for you. And this is really helpful when writing your research statement. They might tell you something about your research that you find really interesting, so you could write about that in your like personal and research statements. And then also you can contact students in the program. They might be giving you some helpful like tips and information on how to on your application. Um, at the same time, maybe try to get a few waivers for applications. Surprisingly, a lot of people get really caught off guard with how expensive application fees are for grad school because it's more expensive than undergrad. And I think most application fees are above $100, maybe $150 each. So if you're applying to 10 schools, that's already over $1,000. So fee waivers are very helpful. Usually program offices can maybe give you one. What I did was that I attended two conferences, ACES and another conference for minorities in research. And at the career fair, they actually had the like representatives from schools that I was applying to, and they just gave me a bunch of fee waivers. I think I only paid for maybe one or two applications, so it was really helpful. And then also, this is just a bonus point. If you can, I would apply to the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program if you have time and if you think you are able to do it. You can apply twice, once during your undergrad or like your fourth year of undergrad when you're about to apply to grad school, and then you can also apply during grad school. But if you did not apply during your undergrad and are in grad school, you can only apply once. But if you apply when you're for the NSF-GRFP when you're applying for grad school, then it makes you look really good on your application because it shows them that you might have funding and then anybody would want to take you. And so they just like to see that you're trying to get it and it's okay if you don't in the end. And I think it is due in November. So next month. It's really soon. And so the actual time of submission is between November and December. You have to make sure to keep track of all your application deadlines um, by using a spreadsheet. Keep in mind that, at least for me, my applications were due between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I wanted to enjoy my Thanksgiving, so I made sure to apply or get all my applications in before Thanksgiving. Especially if you're like in undergrad and have like finals and stuff, it can be a really stressful time. Please, or you should remind your recommenders of the deadlines. Again, I think I talked about this already. And know that sometimes the deadline for your letter of rec is not the same as your deadline. If anything, it's like a few days after. So that's really nice for your recommender, because they get like a little extra time and then you can give them a little extra time. So just in case they were not, did not submit when you submitted. And then there's a post-application season, which is December to April usually. This is when you wait anxiously to hear back from your programs. You're just like waiting for an email or something. If you're applying to a PhD program, you usually get invitation for an interview, and that could be anywhere from late December to late January. Interviews usually happen around like January or to February. So if you um, are a really strong applicant, you should be preparing for a busy spring, especially if you apply to schools like all over the place. There could be a lot of traveling, and also the school should cover your travel and everything for your interview. And then this is kind of a joke, but find out or don't if other applicants have gotten interview invitations. If you're extremely nervous, I wouldn't recommend this way, but I was really anxious to hear back from my program. I wasn't hearing anything. And so I turned to Reddit. On there, there's a master spreadsheet for at least biological sciences PhD program where it lists like all the programs that exist in the United States, and then also students who applied would like update it. So that was pretty helpful for me. There's also a website called Grad Cafe. If you want to know if other people have heard back about interviews or acceptances. Um, but if you don't want to know, of course, don't look at these things. And then just the last part is paying for grad school. So, grad school is technically free for PhD students. For master students, most master students have to pay tuition for the 1 to 3 years that they're there. For PhD students, you receive a modest stipend. So, I go to school in California. It's around, it's over $3,000 per month after taxes. Um, Private institutions usually pay better, and then, of course, other programs like computer science might have higher stipends. The school, and you should consider the high cost or the cost of living. It's pretty high in California, but I would say the UC stipend is pretty decent at um, like covering basic necessities so that you're not struggling. And also, my health insurance is covered by the school, and it's really good health insurance. So um, that's just something unique to UCs, and I'm sure other programs have this. And also, of course, talking to current grad students is always a good idea. I talked to them. They were very happy to talk about how they handle their finances on a grad school stipend. Everyone told me that it was definitely doable, and I would still agree with that. During grad school, everyone has to teach. At UC Berkeley, it's called GSIing, or grad student instructor ing, or at other schools it's TA, like teaching assistant. Um, and then the other like appointment I guess you'll get is a GSR, or grad student researcher, or RA at other schools. So these are the two things that you can be. If you're a GSI or TA, you still have to do research in addition to teaching, and it's expected that you spend around 20 hours a week teaching in addition to 20 hours of research to be like a full-time student. But in reality, I would say it's more about 40 hours of research plus 20 hours of teaching. So that's really fun. If you're a GSR, you get to only focus on your research, so that's really nice. You don't have to worry about teaching. But teaching is also good because it relieves financial stress on your lab or your mentor. And also, if you're a master's student, it can relieve your financial stress because you can teach to cover tuition expenses. If you're in your like first or second year, you might have to take your own classes, and then you might be teaching and doing research. So you might have three things going on at once. And then also, depending on your PI and their financial situation, you might have to teach for more than one semester, which is usually the case for many students. And then there are other ways to have income besides teaching, um, and just your stipend, or if you're a master's student, you don't have a stipend. So you might want to do these things, taking time off before grad school to save money and recover from grad school. That's totally okay. A lot of people do that. You can apply for competitive national fellowships like the NSF, GRFP, which I talked about a little bit earlier, and then all these other like fellowships from companies that can help to um, relieve your financial stress. And then you can also look for scholarships for underrepresented minorities because they really want you to apply, and the money is out there. Some are like ACES. I guess there's a $5 membership fee every year. SACNAS and then GEM, which I'm not so familiar with. I think it's for engineering. And then also just keep in mind, how this would affect taxes. ACES is tax-free, so you don't have to pay any taxes on top of your scholarship. And then, of course, there are other sources like loans you can take if you have a tuition to pay for. You can do internships and just regular non-academic jobs like part-time jobs that aren't too time consuming, and that could help pay for your grad school. So yeah, that's all I have about grad school. Um, I can open it up for questions, and I'll just sit here for a little while if anyone wants to talk.